So good day, everyone. My name is Joe Diorsi. I am the Communications Director at Praise Community Church in York, Pennsylvania, and this is, albeit a little bit different. I don't have my guest, Matt Bellis, today in studio. We're actually doing a Zoom call. Thank God for technology. Normally we would be in studio, but we don't have to, and that's great. And so I have Matt Bellis as actually my first guest on the For Freedom's Sake podcast. And Matt is an administrator, a leader, a spokesperson of a grassroots group called ReOpen PA, which I checked this morning. I'm a member of this group on Facebook. You're approaching 90,000 members. And in the space of a couple of weeks, Matt, that's pretty impressive. There's a lot of vocal people out there that want to do just that, ReOpen PA, and it's an honor to have you today. In addition to being a spokesperson for ReOpen PA, you also serve in an advisory role with the Libertarian Christian Institute. So in terms of politics, you're coming from the position of Christian libertarianism. So I just wanted to let you kind of take the wheel starting off. This is a group, a position and advocacy, if you will, that's gained momentum. It's certainly gotten the ear and the attention of our local representatives. And I just wanted to give you the wheel here, Matt, and allow you to explain, what are you advocating for, who are you advocating for, and ultimately, what's your goal with ReOpen PA?
Well, thanks for having me on. I very much appreciate it. We at ReOpen PA are, like you said, as a grassroots movement, we're not professionals. And so having a mission statement, values and vision, and having money behind us and all those kinds of things is not what we're really, what we don't have readily available to us. But we did at the beginning say, what do we really want ReOpen PA to be about? And the people that started it, well, the person who started it, his name is Teo de las Harris. We joined, my friend and I, Jeff, joined just when it was under 20 people. So we got on board. We started saying, hey, we can do this, that, and the other thing. And when I started talking to Teo, he kind of said, would you mind helping me out with this? I want to make this thing grow and let a lot of people know. And so he made Jeff and I an admin of the group. And I took what he was kind of espousing and condensed it down into some simple lines to let us know where we're taking the direction of the group and where we want to position ourselves. And it's actually right behind me. I don't know if you can read it. I'm a big guy. I'm kind of blocking it. But we use this a lot because it really does encapsulate what we want to accomplish within ReOpen PA. First, we want to protect the vulnerable. We want to be able to take care of those who might be at risk for contracting the disease. I'm actually one of those people. I have an autoimmune disorder, and so as a vulnerable person, I want to make sure that I'm protecting the others as well. The second one is that we want to open the economy. Just the fact that you can't fight a good fight without a robust economy to support that fight. We still feel the same way when it comes to fighting COVID-19, locking everybody down in their homes who aren't at risk or who have a high probability of survival, and not allowing them to work robs them of their dignity, robs them of their ability to work. It increases chances and likelihoods of depression and violence within the home. And it really does a number on people's psychology to where they no longer feel like they're a part of the world. And so we've seen a great divide when it comes to opening the state, because a lot of people are just saying that they can't take it anymore. They can't be locked down. The last one being champion liberty. We feel that being image bearers of God and holding the rights that we do that are God-given, championing liberty is a position that is the basic moral values of what each human individual should be doing. So that encapsulates who we are as a group, protecting the vulnerable, opening the economy, and championing liberty. And we're bringing that message to as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's good. And we discussed the other day, Matt, just there's there's all types of casualties to this lockdown, and you mentioned psychological, and I was just kind of digging into some stats and facts and projections the other day, and it's just from just the physical end, not talking economic. There's, I mean, in York County, specifically in the span of the last couple of weeks, there's been a 300% increase in opioid overdose deaths.
Mm,
There's projections that for every increment of unemployment, we could probably expect nationwide an increase in suicides. So
yeah.
there's all types of casualties, and I'm truly glad that you and other Pennsylvanians are being vocal about addressing those. I wanted to ask you, there is a poll that came out yesterday, and it was picked up by, I believe the first to pick it up was WTAE, which is down in Pittsburgh. And it was from a Washington Post article, and I guess they had conducted this study. And it found that in a relatively small sample size, and you would question who exactly they're asking. It found that a pretty good majority of Pennsylvanians approve, and to be exact, it was 72% approved of Governor Wolf's efforts and his method, I guess you could say, in shutting down Pennsylvania and restricting things. And I just wanted to ask you, as someone who truly does have a pulse, so to speak, of what the general average Pennsylvanian thinks about this. Is that 72% number truly representative of how people in the Commonwealth feel?
There's actually, I would say, two responses to that. The first one being, that's not what I've seen. That's not um, the general, like you say, pulse that I've been able to take from the people within Pennsylvania. It's funny whenever you get to these polls, because how you answer them can be ambiguous. The people that you sample can be rather secluded, or they're rather targeted. So trying to manipulate the public perception by the pursuit of polls is one way, an avenue that you can use politics to get people's way. Uh, so if that's true or not, I would really love to see the stats behind what that poll really is, because even in the governor's own um, postings and what he does and says, there's a ratio there that is heavily weighted towards reopen.
Hmm.
uh, so there are people who support the governor and feel they're secure in what he's saying, but there's a very large majority of people who would never even speak out or protest towards the governor in the past, who are actually on the side of reopen. So we have all kinds of people standing up and saying, no, we can't live this way any longer. We've seen Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives, libertarians, and extremists, if you want to call them that, all say that, no, we can't live in a state of perpetual fear and lockdown. And we don't want to do that. So that's the first answer. I would love to know what the actual stats of that are. The second side of that is, it doesn't matter what the populace or what is popular, because locking people down in their homes for an indefinite period of time is immoral. It's not right. It's not the way that you are to be interacting with other people who have value in and of themselves. To try and condition people and to put them in a state of fear where they're cowering in their homes against an invisible monster is not a way to go about living. And so, the polls are the polls, and what people believe or what people believe. But frankly, in the end, you have to ask the moral and right question. That's the whole issue, frankly, with living in a democracy. Whenever you've got people who say, well, the majority should rule. Well, what if the majority is immorally wrong? And
Hmm.
so we have to answer that question on multiple fronts. And with reopen, it's the right thing to do to give people their liberty and freedom and allow them to operate voluntarily with others again.
Hmm. So, other than the obvious and immediate uh, kind of casualties that we already spoke of, in the long term, what is your biggest concern? What's the gravest thing you see? Whether or not this lockdown, especially in the red counties, continues long-term wise. What's your biggest concern?
If we don't go towards the area of reopen and things are just perpetually locked down for, like I said,
Or
indefinite time periods.
or the precedent this sets for bigger and more involved government at a state level.
I was actually listening to a national media person who kind of just said what is on my fear as well. Totalitarian control no longer shocks us. Having one person call the shots, even trying to do it in a way to protest in a civil manner. The idea that we would have to go to one person to have a redress of grievances should have nowhere been found in the founding of this country, the governance of its people, and the rights of individuals. This is a unprecedented time period that goes back before 1776. When the British governors of individual colonies held almost complete and total control over a particular state. And there they had at least to answer to a king who, at least in his mind and heart, felt like he needed to answer to God. So at least there we had some checks and balances of power. Here we've got very few checks and balances of power. We have a governor who is not even listening to the General Assembly. We are in Pennsylvania a representative commonwealth, and the people that we have voted in, that we elected, are not representing or even allowed to represent the people and their will. There are bills on the floor right now that are saying, no, the governor needs to give up his power and to ensure that the people have the right to freely operate again. And the governor has that on almost indefinite hold. He's taking the temperature of the state and the people. But frankly, it's a little frightening whenever we're so readily accepting of totalitarian control. And it was done in the name of fear, and it always will be done in the name of fear, where individual rights are superseded because one person needs to protect everybody from one thing. The governor is using a law that was passed in the 70s that gave the governor very limited time period, or at least should have been a limited time period and limited scope of a specific area, to actually allow resources and aid to go to one affected area for disaster relief. Well, using that law, we have a 90-day time period where the governor is taking almost complete and total control. And instead of trying to allocate resources and protect an area or get it back on its feet, he's locked down the resources, locked down people in their homes. So the whole idea that we have a totalitarian control in this state and in other states, and people are still somewhat okay with it, that's what's the scariest thing to me.
Yeah. So Governor Wolf had a reaction 48 hours ago to some of the counties, York and Lancaster included, that are, I've heard our representative here in New York, Kristen Phillips Hill, who will be on the show tomorrow, saying, we've been polite, we've drafted very cordial letters, saying we've met the criteria that the Department of Health put out for transitioning to yellow and beyond, and there's been no response from the governor other than calling us all cowards, for wanting to make the transition in accordance with what he put forth to begin with. And then we have the governor just a couple of days ago, Matt, that's making threats. He'll revoke business licenses. He'll withhold funding. And my question for you is, what is the response to his response from the average business owner, person of the Commonwealth, from your perspective, what is the response from that person to this threat? What are Pennsylvanians thinking?
Whenever you're talking to a politician and you get called a name, the best thing to do whenever you get called a name like selfish coward is to try and make that a positive. We had deplorables back in 2016. So I don't know how Pennsylvanians can take selfish cowards and make that a positive, but here's hoping. A lot of the businesses that I've actually talked to and a lot of the people who are who heard about this, and even representatives and senators, just absolutely floored, just completely taken aback that a sitting governor would look at his people with certain contempt
Mhm.
to call them selfish cowards if they want to exercise their rights. People have a response of a kind of a how dare he, and two, oh, I'm just done with this guy. Uh, but as I heard this and I heard people talking about this, it made something very crystal clear to me that when you have somebody calling the shots, whenever you have one person making all of the decisions, anything that would move contrary to those decisions are not only going to be a policy affront, but a personal affront. So his reaction to different counties looking to supersede his quote unquote authority uh, and reopen on a timeline that they deem is necessary, going around his newly grabbed power, he took that as a personal attack. And so he turns around and gives another personal attack. And so the governor is looking at this as an ad hominem, excuse me, my Latin's not perfect, ad hominem debate where we're having to give personal attacks to people. And this is why you have a steps of action and a balance of power and a checks and balances when it comes to initiating laws. We are a nation of laws. We're not a nation or a nation of men. We don't orientate our lives on the precepts of what a man says, but we do it on the precepts of what we agree through our representatives of what the law should say, so that we are attacking a law if it is unjust rather than an individual if it is unjust. At this point, separating the politician from the policies seems almost impossible, especially when you've been called selfish cowards by the one who's enacting them.
Yeah. So as far as, and you touched on this a little bit already, but as far as legality and constitutionality, a question that I've got a lot, and I've wondered it too, is suppose there are, I guess, non-essential businesses who are following, their county representatives, especially in places like, York, Lancaster, Dauphin, who officially, and at least in the governor's eyes, aren't yet out of the red phase. Suppose they are moving into yellow this Friday or already, in accordance with their local authorities, and they are, I guess you could say, in defiance of the governor's orders, but certainly not in defiance with the local government. In terms of legality and constitutionality, should the Wolf administration come down on them, what are the possible repercussions? Are there any in the court of law, constitution wise? What's the grounds for citing and or penalizing these people?
I was actually concerned about the outcome of a lot of this, primarily because there are attorneys right now who are filing lawsuits with the Supreme Court to basically ask that very question. Is what the governor doing actually constitutionally accurate? Because let's not forget, the law of the land, the authority over us all within the boundaries of Pennsylvania and the United States, is the United States Constitution.
Mhm.
That is the final say about our individual abilities and rights. The issue that some people have had is that if we involve the Supreme Court or the executive branch to come down to a particular state and to file a lawsuit against a governor, what sort of precedent is being set then? It may be good now, but because we tend to follow precedent in law, what does that set for the future? Would that be a negative? But after talking to the lawyer who is filing all of this, he basically just said, well, this is what the United States Constitution and the Supreme Court is all about, frankly, is to protect individuals within their state, to say, no, there's a higher authority here that needs to supersede what a governor might say or what a individual legislature might say. There's a final authority that we need to be able to appeal to and to interpret. So it is good and right in this sense because we're looking at the individual rights of people rather than trying to take away things from folks.
Mhm.
So this is a good avenue to go down, and I truly believe that the governor is violating the Constitution in the amount of powers that he's taking, and the the fact that he's ignoring the state legislature and our duly represented uh, uh, officials
Mhm.
are not being adhered to. Those are issues in and of themselves. We can't live by dictate and fiat forever.
Mhm. So I read just the other day that, and I think it's a good idea. I mean, President Trump took to Twitter the other day and kind of injected his opinion on Governor Wolf's actions. I thought that was in. He's following by actually visiting, I believe, the Allentown area this week. So he's positioning himself into this scenario, and with Pennsylvania going his way last election and certainly still in play for the fall. My question to you is, to what degree is when we all gather, whichever way we do, early this November, to vote for our next president, to what degree it is and will be Wolf's actions in reopening PA or the lack thereof, to what degree will Pennsylvanians vote to audit what he's done and his plan and his method? In other words, do you believe that Trump and the representatives and the Republican side will actually benefit? The silver lining in all of this fiasco will be that we possibly revolt the polls.
I apologize. The connection got a little lost there for a second here. Can you summarize that question just one more time?
Sure. So President Trump is going to visit Pennsylvania, the Allentown area, this week, and of course he injected himself into the debate of reopening Pennsylvania on Twitter the other day. And my question is, he's certainly willing to get involved in Pennsylvania, which is certainly in play this November. And he carried Pennsylvania last time. To what degree are Pennsylvanians in early November going to audit or revolt against Tom Wolf's resume during this time? And I guess to simplify it, is Governor Wolf handing President Trump and possibly other Republican officials the election this November with his actions?
Well, if you're to believe the polls, no, but polls have lied to us before. And frankly, this is going to be the issue in all of the election this November, and I think to come, because people are going to ask the question, what would you have done during the coronavirus? How would you have handled this issue? Just like it was done with the Iraqi war, with 9/11. This is going to be a defining moment in our time moving forward, where we start asking our politicians, are you going to be the one taking away my rights? And I actually believe, from the feedback that I have gotten, and hopefully I'm not in an echo chamber, but from the feedback that I've gotten, this has been a complete and total repudiation of Tom Wolf, unfortunately. I don't want to make it about a particular person, but rather the policies. But like I said before, it's hard to separate them at this time. So we have a lot of people who are absolutely incensed against this, and people that I've seen who are on the left, who are Democrats, who are liberals, basically just say enough is enough. We can't live like this. This is not living. This is tyranny. We're not going to be doing this anymore. When I start hearing, 20 somethings who are dyed in the wool, progressive liberals start saying that,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a sample size to say something's going wrong here within the left side of the aisle. Uh, if you're looking at the General Assembly in Pennsylvania, it's been down the middle, Republicans and Democrats, when it comes to bills of reopening and things like that, where all the Republicans are in favor of reopen and very few, if any, Democrats are in favor of it, or at least not speaking up at the time. But you've got the general Democrat in Pennsylvania who's actually just saying, no, we're not going to do this any longer. We're stepping up. We're pushing back. We're not going to allow this to happen. So I think in a way, politically, Tom Wolf's digging his own grave and handing over elections for the foreseeable future to the Republicans. But
Yeah.
that's my political take on things. And frankly, I've been wrong before in the past as well. So take it for what you will.
Yeah. So I've long been a proponent, Matt, and I think we're in the same camp here of limited government, for two main reasons. I think that it's biblical. I think that personal responsibility and sowing and reaping is just a biblical principle, and it just aligns with a limited central government. The number two reason is I think that it's proven effective, and that's possibly an oversimplification, but we also don't have all day. And I want to hand it over to you to give your take. But presuming that there's people watching, listening who are on the fence. Now, you and I are sold on limited government, and that's fine. And there's probably others that are of that opinion too. But presuming there's people on the fence, what's your relatively short sell for why limited government is the best way?
It really does boil down to one question. How much force are you willing to bring against someone else? And in what instances are you willing to do that? Because if you boil down government to what it basically is, government is the only legal monopoly for the use of force against individuals. We have granted as people the right of force to the government to enact against other people. So, knowing that we now have this flame over in one corner to say, okay, how are we going to use this? Some people say, well, we can use it for good or we can use it for ill. And my question is not necessarily for good or ill, because that's a sliding scale whenever people's opinions get involved. Really, the question is, how much of that fire are we going to allow people to get burned by? Because in any event, people are going to get burned. So do we want to use that fire against people who are doing wrong against others? Yeah. Are we going to put that fire to somebody who, may be late on their taxes? Now you're starting to question, did they really hurt anybody? I don't know. Are we willing to use that fire against people who are low level crimes? Are we willing to use that fire now? And here's the main point of it: are we willing to use that fire now against businesses who are just trying to survive?
Yeah.
And that's the real question. People are going to get burned no matter what. How much burning are we willing and going to allow?
Yeah.
So that's why I look at it in terms of limited government, because as small as possible, because the only people who should get burned are the ones who are trying to burn others. And we want to be able to protect the rights of individuals who are there to live peaceably. I've used this illustration before where the right to swing my fist ends where your face begins. And I should have the right and ability to live within myself and operate as an individual, so long as I don't infringe upon the rights of others. But if you take it with just that bit of knowledge, then you start saying, okay, well, what if your daily actions affect people in a way that is ultimately negative, and we need to stop you? And that's where totalitarian control comes in. People acting in accordance with their own conscience, interacting with other people, what inadvertent, quote unquote, violence are they committing towards each other? That's a question that can never be answered. I heard it the other day when it came to the coronavirus. People saying, well, if you reopen, you may not get sick, but who are you carrying it to and that you may kill? Well, that's an existential nightmare that you would never be able to wake up from, because you have to then ask your question, well, how many people in the past have you already killed by carrying a flu virus to them? Or how many people did you delay who then had to hurry down the sidewalk, trip and fall into the street, and then get run over by a bus? We all have interactions and risk that we deal with on a daily basis, and we have to go about under the same concept that just says, I'm going to live within my rights and capabilities and liberties, and as long as I don't initiate the action of force against someone else, I should have the right to live. Going back to my original analogy of fire, somebody is going to get burned. Who are the people that we are willing to allow to get burned?
Mm-hmm.
And those are the questions I would have people ask in and of themselves, and say that's something to really ponder at that point.
Yeah. When I look back on, I'm a student of history, and one of my favorite time periods is, just the early U.S. Republic. The decades that really shaped our country, and we exploded as a country, not just economically, but every sense. And I look at there's three principles that really played into the explosion of the experiment of America. It was strong private property rights, regulations, and relatively low taxes. And those 3 points, Matt, are the heartbeat of limited government, are they not?
I would say yes. Limited taxes to the point of almost non-existent. Even people look at taxes now and say, well, yeah, they're all just because the Constitution says so. No, not necessarily, because there is a right way to imply taxes and there's a wrong way to imply it. And I think in large part we are using those current aspects of taxes in a wrong way, especially whenever people have a hard time knowing exactly, frankly, what they're quote unquote getting for their money. But I would kind of push back a little bit and just kind of say the basics of individuality and what makes good governance and what people are actually able to live in quote unquote a society is the idea that you have the ability to live, you have the ability to operate, and you have the ability to pursue the things that you are allowed to do without infringing upon others. And that's found in the Declaration of Independence, where we're given the God-given rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So really, we're standing up for those principles as well when it comes to the ReOpen PA concept and what we want to do within ReOpen PA. We want to stand up for the individual's life, their liberty, and their pursuit of happiness. And I think that also boils down to what we were saying in protecting the vulnerable, taking care of their lives, opening up the economy, allow them to pursue their happiness, and championing liberty, where people have the ability to live and to operate without the infringement of government.
Yeah. So those that are listening or watching today, Matt, that like what they hear, they want to get involved, they want to find you on the web, do what they can to advocate for the cause. How do you
Just go to ReOpen PA. It's on Facebook, a private Facebook group. You might be able to find it. We've got, I'm looking at it now, around 89,000 members. So can't be too upset about that. But yeah, if people just want to come and join us as well on Friday, we're going to be out on May 15th at noon on the Capitol steps in Harrisburg, protesting the governor and saying to the governor, it's time to give up the power and start working with the General Assembly again. Those are the ones that we've duly elected, and we would like you to work with them again. So if people want to come out and protest, feel free to come out and do that, and join us at ReOpen PA on Facebook.
Okay. So Matt, thank you very much for your time today. It was enlightening. and it was an honor to speak with you and to get the word out about ReOpen PA. So I encourage anyone listening or watching, find that private Facebook group on Facebook, and I guess you would click the button that says join, and then do you need to be approved, or how does that work?
There is an approval process. There's some questions that we would ask that you answer, but it's very simple. And whenever you answer those questions, you will be admitted.
Okay. Thanks again, Matt. I really appreciate it, and good luck to you with ReOpen PA. And let's all just hope and pray that we do just that. We reopen as quickly as possible.
Hear, hear.
Thanks again, Matt.